To record. So welcome everybody to our second Lunch and Learn, which is all about water quality monitoring. I'm going to ask you all to please mute yourselves and also turn your cameras off. So that will help with the presentation running smoothly on the platform. So I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Emma Collier. I'm the Director of Integrated Watershed Management. And I have with me Tanner Liang, who is our water quality specialist, who is going to take you through the presentation today. So just a little bit about Tanner. Tanner joined us this year. He holds a Master's in Environmental and Life Sciences from Trent University, where he focused on water quality specifically. And prior to joining us, he worked as a project coordinator for Swim Drink Fish Canada. And he was also the project lead for the Environmental Geoscience Research Group at Trent University. So I'm delighted that Tanner is going to take us through this presentation today. So over to you, Tanner.
Thanks, Emma. I need to shorten that intro about me just a bit. So welcome, everybody. As Emma said, my name is Tanner. I'm the water quality specialist for Kawartha Conservation. And today I'm really excited to share with you a water quality program that we do at Kawartha Conservation. And this is the Provincial Water Quality Monitoring Network. So before I want to acknowledge that I live, and most of us are living and work on the traditional territory of the Michi-Sagi and Anishinaabe, commonly known as the Mississauga people. This region has been a site of human activity for about 15,000 years, specifically the Michi-Sagi Anishinaabe, and they've been here as recently as 500 years ago. We're grateful for the Michi-Sagi Anishinaabe, who were the original stewards of this land, and we are grateful for the opportunity to take part in the continued care of the Kawarthas. May we continue to strengthen our relationship with each other and to the land. A little fun fact is that the word Kawartha is an Anishinaabe Moan word for a glistening body of water, which really does show how great of a region we are in. So I want to start off with a poll. So the first poll, I'm just going to ask, where are you participating from? I want to get to know whoever's joining us today. Are you located in Lindsay, Port Perry, outside our jurisdiction, or inside our jurisdiction? And if you want, please put your closest town in the chat.
Okay, I'm just going to end the poll now.
Okay.
And share the results.
Wow, we got a few outside our jurisdiction. Well, welcome. In this presentation, I'll show you a couple things in our jurisdiction as well. So the next one. So the next poll, how did you hear about this Lunch and Learn? Was it through social media, our website, or just word of mouth?
Okay, I'm sending the poll and sharing the results now.
Social media. Yep. Cool. Thank you. So the outline of this presentation, so I'll be talking about the background of the monitoring network, the current details, so how does it work? Why is this program important? Some key water quality trends, some things to come, and then we'll end it with a question and answer period. So I'm excited to answer any of your questions. So the history of the Provincial Water Quality Monitoring Network, commonly known as PWQMN, it started in the 1960s, 1964 with 5 conservation authorities. This was around the Peel region, so Credit Valley Conservation started it with only 98 sites. But as we start to gain more concern about water quality. It peaked with 900 sites in the mid-1970s. And then as of current time, so as of 2019, there's only 436. Now you could view all of these sites by looking up PWQMN on your internet browser, whether it be Google or whatnot, and you could find the nearest site. And these sites, you can see on this map, you can see all the blue, which are active sites, and the white, which are inactive sites. So although this program is over 50 years old, here are some historical technology that we used to use, and here are the current technologies that we use, some fancy gear. The goals still remain the same for this network. And the goals are to continued surveillance of the water quality to detect trends and threats, to ensure compliance with the provincial water quality objectives, and 3, to collect and deliver the data for water quality studies. And conservation authorities use the data to undergo reporting and to assess what key trends are going on in our watershed. So to bring you back, for those who are outside our jurisdiction, welcome to the Kawartha Conservation area. It's about roughly over 2,500 square kilometers, and which is roughly about 40% of Prince Edward Island, if you were to look on a map. And you could find more about our jurisdiction at our website and under the tab, Understanding Your Watershed. Within our watershed, there are 5 key lakes that we like to work on. This is Pigeon, Balsam, Cameron, Scugog, and Sturgeon Lake. And when you add all the area, the surface area of these lakes, it's about 262 kilometers squared. And a good reference is if people know the town of Innisfil near Barrie, that's the size of what 262 square kilometer represents. In addition to lakes, we also have many rivers and creeks. In our jurisdiction, there are over 20 major creeks and rivers, and this adds up to over 2,400 kilometers if you just add everything up, line it up. And the largest is Mariposa Brook near Little Britain, and it's about 294 kilometers. And the smallest creek is Quackers Creek in Port Perry, and it's about 16 kilometers. Again, if you go on our website and under the tab Understanding Your Watershed, you can look up some cool facts about each individual creeks and rivers. Now, to show what 2,400 kilometers look like, if you were to stretch all our major creeks and rivers from Lindsay, it would stretch to the Alberta-Saskatchewan border, or if you want to go south, it'd stretch all the way to Havana, Cuba. So we have a lot of rivers and creeks, and they're fairly large. So here's another poll I want to ask. This is just a trivial kind of thing. So how many sites do you think we have? So do you think we have 1 site? Can read. A few more, around 5. A few more sites, 11. Or a lot of sites, 25.
Okay, I'm sending that poll now and sharing the results.
Oh, 67% got the correct answer. I'm pretty sure you looked at our website, so good for you. And the rest said 33%. A lot of sites, 25. I like you. Whoever said 25 sites. Right, so like I said, the correct answer is a few more sites. We have a total of 11 sites across lakes, streams, and rivers. Here's a map of all of our sites for the PWQMN. To view all our sites, we just recently updated our site. If you go on kawarthaconservation.com, below environmental science, and then watershed monitoring, you could view all of our water quality sites, but also all the other programs that we have. So climate, biomonitoring as well. You could look at all of our sites. So how does this network work? Well, it's a partnership between conservation authorities such as Kawartha Conservation and the Ontario government, specifically the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. They coordinate the program. They give us all the supplies and equipment, which is really nice. And they do all the laboratory analysis for each individual water sample, which is really great. And then they have all the technology that houses and manages the data. From our side, from the conservation authority side, we are the localized expertise and knowledge. So if they are finding something weird in the data or in the sample, they'll come to us and be like, hey, what's the area around this site? Is there a large point source? Is there a factory, or is it more natural? So we are the on-the-ground experts for this program. We also do all the field sampling, the fun part of this program. And we also do reporting as well. As you may know, it's through the Watershed report card. Now, both of us, both the provincial government and the conservation authority, we work together, and the end goal is to produce this available data set, this open data of water quality data that anybody can have access to. So if you go on your browser and look up PWQMN open data, you'll get access to all the water quality data that we produce. You'll also get all the field measurements as well. And then you have access to all 400 sites and for everything that we measured from 1964 to 2019. Now, you may ask, why up to 2019? Well, it takes a lot of time to analyze the sample, look at the data, see if it's good or not, and then bring it all together, because it's not just one conservation authority, it's all 30-ish conservation authority. So they pull it all together, put it in a big file, and then upload it. So I like polls. So here's another poll. What's the correct method name for collecting water samples from a shoreline? Is it the stick and bottle method, the grab method, the dunk and debunk method, or D&D method? Or is it the row and throw method?
Okay, just sending the poll, and I'm sharing the results.
Nice. The stick and bottle method. Close. You're very close. We do use sampling poll, but the correct answer is the grab method. I'm glad nobody picked the dunk and debunk, even though it sounds cool. So in the field, we go out in our fancy Kawartha Conservation logo truck, as you can see, with our bottles and our equipment. So when we arrive at each site, we take a field measurement using a handheld water quality probe. And the field measurements are pH, so how acidic the water is, the conductivity, how much dissolved salt there is, the turbidity, how cloudy the water is, the temperature, how warm or cold it is, and then how much oxygen there is, how much dissolved oxygen. So in that one unit, we could have all this information ready. And then using the grab method, we usually take between 3 and 5 water samples, and they range between half a liter, 500 milliliters, to 100 milliliters. And we often do this on the bridge with a rope, of course, or along the riverbank with either the grab method or with the sampling pole. So you might see us in the watershed with our truck. So if you do come and say hi, of course, with COVID restrictions 6 feet apart. And then we often do this monthly from January to December. We only stop when the river or the lake is frozen and we can't access it. So why do we do this? Why do we take water samples and look at them and assess what's in them? Well, it's built into the mandate and the very fabric of the organization. So for Ontario, they work to protect and sustain the quality of Ontario's air, land, and water. From Kawartha Conservation, our vision is to have clean and abundant water. Our mission is to be leaders, and our focus is to understand outstanding water quality and quantity. So it's built into our fabric of an organization to protect and to keep the water clean for everybody to use. And it all comes back to this watershed approach. I keep saying watershed. It's um, where if a single drop were to land on any piece of land, it would all flow to a single point, usually a river or a lake. And I want to bring up this notion of all water is lake water in our jurisdiction. So whenever you do dishes or when rain falls on your roof and it goes on the ground, or if you water your lawn, all that water will end up in the lake. So all water is lake water. And when we think about the lake water, that's where many people get their drinking water from. So this is a map of our jurisdiction. We have these points right here, and these are the surface water intake for drinking water. This map is through CA Maps, and there's a public domain where you can view this. And that's where many people, like I said, get their drinking water from. So if all water is lake water, we have to be conscious on how we use that water properly. And we don't use water just for drinking. We use it for many other aspects of our life. You know, with COVID, we're washing our hands more. We need that clean water to wash our hands so we don't pass on COVID. We also, whenever we go outside, we interact with the water. If we're going to the beach, we stick our hands and feet in. We like to keep cool. Or if we're swimming, we're dunking our head in. We're dunking our head into that water. And then also, we use that water to grow our food. Many of us might have a garden or have started gardening. We use that water to grow our food and we eat that food. So if our water is dirty, it does impact us from a variety of different routes. And we also share this precious resource with our neighbors. And I'm talking about not the human, but also the animals as well. We share water with fish, we share with birds, and even down to the tiny algae that we share this water resource with. So we try to protect the water not only for ourselves, but for the other neighbors that we share this precious landscape with. Because if not, then we see these horrible images. You know, if we litter, then that goes into the water, as you can see up here. You know, if we pollute the water, our neighbors aren't going to be happy and they're going to get more sick. We see, you know, starving lake trout, or we see abnormal growth on fish. And you know, the water itself, it's a home. So if we make it crazy, then you know, certain animals will thrive and certain animals will not. One thing that we've always studied is the process of eutrophication. Here we see that when we have too much fertilizer, the algae like to grow and grow and grow, and it produces this neon green sludge. I call it sludge, that can be viewed from space. This is a satellite imagery of Lake Erie. And this eutrophication process happens almost annually. And I like to think about it as if you're home and making soup, right? You made your soup. Look how hard it is to turn soup back to its initial ingredient. You can't pull back the ingredients out of the soup. So we need to be conscious. Instead of creating really bad soup, it'd be great to just keep the water clean so it doesn't turn into bad soup. So uh, bringing back to the program, you know, we've been monitoring specific sites for over 50 years. I want to share some cool trends of this program. Here we have chloride concentration, so from roads out, and here are the chloride concentrations for two sites. One, as you can see, both trends are going upward. And, you know, this is 1966 to 2020. And you can see that there's a gradual increase in chloride concentration in the water. But I want to note that it's far below what the Canadian Water Quality Guideline for the protection of aquatic life, which is about 120 milligrams per liter. As a background in chemistry, I kind of calculated. So if you go home, or you're already at home, I'm supposed with the stay-at-home order. If you take just 0.2 grams of table salt, just regular old salt, and you put it in a liter of water, and that's the concentration in which is recommended for the protection of aquatic life. Now, you may say like, oh, Tanner, that's just 2 sites. You have 11. What about the other sites? So here we go. Here's 5 other sites from our watershed. And the red vertical line, sorry, the red vertical lines that you see here represents a 20-year gap. So in the 1979 to 2000, there wasn't any sample being taken. So, but you could generally see that over the course of many years, even with the data gap, there is an upward trend in chloride. And that's primarily from salt use during the wintertime. With growing cities, there's growing pavement, more salt use. Now, here's a fun bit. Now, instead of looking at per year, let's look at it per month. So if we take 50 to 10-ish years and divide it down to each month. So each month represents 10-ish years of data. We can see that the biggest increase in chloride concentration happens around the 3rd and 4th month, which is March and April, which coincides with the spring melt. And you can see that chloride usually stays in the system for a fairly long time. Now, another trend I want to talk about is total phosphorus trend. Like I said, total phosphorus is linked with eutrophication. I won't talk about it too much as I have another lunch and learn in August about eutrophication. So if you want to sign up for then, please do to learn a bit more about eutrophication. But similar graphs where I show total phosphorus concentration for many sites. It's a bit cloudy, but I want to focus on Scugog River. In Scugog River, you can see 1970s, and then we have the vertical line, which represents a 20-year gap, and then it shows total phosphorus concentrations from 2000s to 2020. And you can see there's a big difference in total phosphorus concentrations back then versus now. And that's because we realized that, hey, phosphorus does contribute to eutrophication, and eutrophication causes a lot of environmental damage. Let's do something about it. So, through the Environmental Protection Act, we reduced the amount of phosphorus in cleaners and laundry detergents, and we can clearly see that has worked. So that's another important of this program, is to validate to ensure that policy is working, so we don't so we learn from our mistakes. And although the provincial water quality objective states that it has to be 0.02 milligram, which is this horizontal black line, it, when compared to the 1970s, we're doing a fairly good job, but we're not there yet. Got to get it under 0.02. But compared to the 1970s, we're doing a great job. It can't all be horrible stories. So things to come, as the new water quality specialist for Kawartha Conservation, I want to build upon the Kawartha Conservation strategic goals. One of them is to connect and collaborate. I view everybody who lives in our watershed and perhaps outside our watershed are equal partners because we all share the same water. So from my perspective, things that you should look forward to from my work is more reporting on water quality. I want to showcase more of what we do through social media posts. And I want to share all the data that I have in terms of an open data to make it more accessible, findable, and usable. So everything that I've presented today, you have the same data and you can produce the same graphs as well. So if you have any other suggestions, just leave it in the chat. I'll go through it. So thank you for your time. These are the websites that you could take a look at to view all the maps and figures and data. Don't forget, the Provincial Water Quality Monitoring Network has open data and has that cool map to find your nearest site. And join us again, join our department again next month on May 14th. My colleague Rob will be talking about citizen science, which is really cool. So what questions or suggestions do you have?
Thank you, Tanner. That was a fantastic presentation. I'm just wondering if we have a few people on, if people would like to come forward with any questions about Tanner's presentation or any suggestions for the future, that would be great. If you'd like to use chat, or we could probably get you actually on the screen as well, because we're a fairly small group today.
Don't be shy. So Ashley asks, does Kawartha Conservation collect fisheries and fish community data as well? Well, we do. Brett, who is our aquatic biologist, he does go out and collect data in terms of fish habitat and fish. I believe he is also doing a talk as well. So if you go on our website, there is a section where he talks about temperature, water temperature, and fish. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. I think Chris Appleton had a question. I know he turned his camera on briefly. Chris, over to you.
Oh. Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So recently, Kawartha Conservation has organized nearshore citizen science water measuring. I was part of that for Sturgeon Lake.
Yeah.
So perhaps you could comment on how that fits into your program here.
So many sites for our provincial water quality network are strategically located on easily accessible sites. What the nearshore does, it fills in that gap. As you know, many of the areas surrounding the lakes are privatized. So with the help of citizen science, we can fill in that gap of knowledge in terms of areas that we don't usually cover. And with the nearshore as well, often many of our sites from lake management plans are in the middle of the lake. That's not really representative of a lake of the whole, because as a lake there's the nearshore and then there's the inner pieces of the lake. So the nearshore aspect does help fill in that gap. Does that answer your question?
Do we have the results from Sturgeon Lake?
So yes, we do. And also we're starting this program again for this year as well. I'm pretty sure Rob will talk about it, so I won't take too much of his light. So my email's right there. So if you want to email me, I could for sure find the results for you.
Okay, and a companion question. Kawartha Lake Stewards also does water quality monitoring and does its own annual report. So perhaps you could comment on how you overlap with that.
So they do a great job of reporting. I'm not too, like Emma said, I'm fairly new to the program, but Brett works closely with them and we're hoping to work together more. That's all.
Okay, well, Emma will know I'm fairly old to the program. So that's why I'm asking these questions. I've been around for about a dozen years. I'm interested in how the programs relate to each other. Because if they're just reported as distinct reports in different channels, it's hard to pick up on. I mean, I would I'd personally like to see a sort of a comprehensive view, which is a combination of what you do, lake stewards, those 3 years when I was collecting samples off my dock, wrap that up with as my suggestion is you could wrap that up specific view of the lake. Because the middle of Sturgeon Lake might be diluted and fairly good quality but certain bays, some of the dugout channels, some of the backwater is pretty intense. So people really want to know what's happening in front of their property.
Yeah, I do agree.
That's just a suggestion. Yeah, that if we could, from a sort of from a citizen knowledge point of view, a accessible report would be helpful. So
Sure.
that's just a suggestion. There's a lot of groups doing a lot of things. It's hard to get your head around all of them.
Yeah. I know Em and I talked about reporting and what that would look like. So generally, you definitely hit the nail on the head. You know, having multiple programs, just talking about their own program, it's a lot for people to get a hold of. But if we combine the data of each individual program, we can make a better report. So I do agree with you, Chris. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I think we had a question on the chat from Liz. Tanner, I don't know if you're able to have a look at that one.
So is a portion of that decline in TV have to also do analytical? So I will take my best shot at this question, and it's asking if the analytical techniques have contributed to the decline of TP. So of course, technology has advanced. We have more precise instruments as time went on. So if we go back, what speaks out to me in this graph is how spread out the data is. So if you look in 1970, sorry, you can see that there's a lot of variation, and we don't know what it is. It could be attributed to analytical instruments, for example. Back then, we were getting to know computer chips and computer processing. So there might be it might not have been as precise as when we compare it to now. Now we have very precise instruments. We have large instruments that could do like underneath a microscope, really fine detail work. And that could represent how less spread out the data is from modern times. And also, I want to add that the large decrease in phosphorus has also been attributed to land use policies as well. So, instead of dredging wetlands, we've created buffer zones. We've, understood that there are certain natural features that help us regulate phosphorus. Journal, great work. I'm in. We need to. Thanks, Liz. I will definitely keep that in mind for our water quality reports, and it'd be great to include the Ontario Lake program.
I think Chris has another question for you, Tanner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you hear me? Yep.
Yes.
So, apropos Sturgeon Lake, I'll give you my very unscientific comment, which is that when I was a kid, Sturgeon Lake was green every August in the 60s. And I believe a lot of that was attributed to the lack of full treatment of the sewage treatment coming out of Lindsay. And once they established full green bloom, was diminished. I think that was coincident with the removal of phosphorus as well. But if you do look back into history, that in particular was a problem. I'm told anecdotally because the frost was frozen and didn't want to impose the cost on the local constituents. So there was a political element to that as well. Whether that's true or not, that's the story. Yeah. But I just tell you anecdotally that we've come a long, long way from the green blooms of August. So yeah. I used to get mad at my dad because he'd take his holidays in August and we couldn't swim. So yeah. when I look at that graph, which you've got up there about the high rates in the 70s, you go, yeah, that's what it was like. It was a mess. And then I do note, by the way, there's a little blip in 2011 when, you may recall, we had another very large bloom in that summer, which was in the middle of lake monitoring and planning. And the only difference that between the years was that in 2011, it was a very, very dry July. No rain, everything slowed down, the lake got warm, and then we had some crackerjack big thunderstorms, which flushed a lot of stuff into the lake. And in August, we had a big bloom.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was jumping up and down and yelling at the mayor saying, you got to do something about this, but you can't control the weather. And I recall that in particular because we were doing lake planning at the time, and we were monitoring it. And there was no other factor. There was no other change in agricultural policy or sewage treatment. Everything was the same between 2010, 11, and 12, and 13. So the only difference in 11 was the weather.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty bad. They closed the beaches.
Yep.
There was a significant bloom in 11. And I think that's reflected in your chart there with the phosphorus going up.
Yeah, this is
so that's my
yes.
Yeah. So and that rain, of course, would have washed stuff off the farms. So all the cattle that have been grazing, and it was dry. I don't think it rained the whole month. So that's what happens. We can't control that.
Well, it all just goes back to,
anyways, that's my
all water is lake water, right?
Yeah. So anyways, just adding my unscientific anecdotes to your knowledge base.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you. We are running a little bit over. We probably have time for maybe one or two more questions before we finish the lunch and learn. I think I can see Ted with his hand up. Do you want to go ahead with your question?
Sure. I was just wanted to ask whether last summer in 2020, with the significantly warmer weather that we had, the warm water temperatures and the drought conditions, and also the very low flows in the whole system because of the Trans-Severan's efforts to conserve water, did you observe any significant changes in particularly phosphorus, I guess, with those conditions that were certainly not what we normally expect through the Kawartha Lakes?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great question, Ted. Unfortunately, I haven't really gone through delve deep into last year's data. I just started this year, but if you send me an email, my email's here, I could definitely get back to you. That's really interesting because a lot of people have thought, why are we looking at just phosphorus? We should look at the whole system as a whole. Like you said, there's low rainfall, high temperatures. Are these, they're modeling these parameters to see, hey, if we get a better understanding of this and we get a model, then perhaps we can forecast if there's going to be eutrophication events. I know many beaches in Toronto or even in the States, they already have this technology. They've already taught a model how to forecast poor recreational water quality. Thank you, Ted, for bringing that to light.
Okay, thank you, and I'll drop you a note and we can follow up. But you've got Liz there; she's the expert on this stuff, and she's going to become more the expert now that she's with Lake Partner.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions before we close for today? Just having a quick look, checking nobody's waving at me. Okay, well, I think what we'll do, we'll draw this lunch and learn to a close. Tanner's contact details are on there if you think of any more questions you'd like to ask him after today. This presentation will be available on our website, so we have been recording that today. So if you want to go back and revisit anything or look at any graphs, please feel free to do so. As Tanner mentioned, we have one of these series running every month on different topics. So our next one is on May 14th. So if you want to have a look and register for that, please feel free to. And just like to thank everybody for joining us today and some great questions, and look forward to seeing you all again soon. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tanner.